Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k podcast focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to seize initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan and I'm joined by the total lack of doors on Octarius board to my Gellerpox infected Kill Team, Conor. How you doing, team Conor?
I'm good, thanks Ryan.
This is also another special episode as we're joined by the Gift of the Gab itself and the king of tournament organisation, Jason, the lead of the Nottingham KT Crew. How you doing this evening, Jason?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, man.
So for people that are listening to this and they don't necessarily know who you are, do you want to give a little quick introduction of who you are and why they should be interested in you?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jason. As you said, I run I harass people to come and play games of Kill Team at Sanctury in Sutton in Asfield, which is near Mansfield in Nottingham. And as the group has grown, started to organise some tournaments about every 3 months or so. Just so it fits in with my work schedule.
So far.
Yeah, it's been good fun so far.
So obviously you have a few options. You could play big 40k, you could play Warcry maybe, or whatever the other options are. But you've settled on Kill Team. And why is it exactly that you've gone for this game system rather than any others?
So I wanted to get into. I never really did a lot of tabletop wargaming. Did a little bit of hobbying when I was younger, but nothing massive. And obviously, as your disposable income grows, you think, maybe I'll go back. I'll revisit that idea. So that's what happened. Thought I'd give 40k a try, and it just didn't feel like it was for me. It felt like there was a lot of dead time where your opponent was doing lots of stuff, and you were just waiting to see how badly your models had been obliterated, and you were packing them all away. So it just didn't feel very engaging.
It's very painful when you get shot for an entire turn and then charged and then killed in melee for an entire turn. It's like at some point this pain will end, but it's probably in about an hour's time
when the game is done.
Yeah,
I can go home. Yeah, I didn't find it a good. It wasn't like a fair trade-off for giving up time with your family or with your friends. You're like, I'm going to go and play the game for a couple of hours. And then I didn't feel like I felt much reward back from it, like not much engagement or enjoyment. So I transitioned into like, what else can I do with these models that I already have? And then the Kill Team was an option. I had some Grey Knights. Quite easy to run a companion team out of the army I had. So I harassed a couple of the other more jaded players from that 40k group, and they said they were up for it. They said, yeah, we'll try a Kill Team. So did a bit of research, tried to figure out how to play the game, and arranged a little WhatsApp group. And I think they had the two guys from the 40k group and one other guy who said he had played before, which was Wayne. And we were all going to get together and like try and learn it. It ended up just being me and Wayne because the other two dropped out. So I kind of commandeered the group from there because I was like, okay, if there's no group, I'll just make my own, and just advertise it everywhere I could. On every Facebook group, on every Discord, on every YouTube comment section, just literally every avenue I could think of. And just over time it grew, and now we get like 15, 20 players a week just for casual games.
I was about to say, so you started on 2 players, and now on a club night you're getting anywhere from 15 like players, and they can turn up twice a week, so potentially up to 20 guys a week turning out to play Kill Team is like almost tournament levels. Well, it is tournament levels of players on just casual nights. I think that's absolutely epic that you've grown it from just 2 guys.
Yeah, it was hard because you have to be really persistent.
Yeah, you're good at that, though. You are good at that.
Yeah, I'm relentless when I get going. But you also have to be engaging. I think you can't just say who's here on this day and who's here on this day. There has to be that social element, and I think we just managed to find a good bunch of people that were interested in playing competitively and engaging socially at the same time, and that keeps them coming back. And then obviously with more people who are new get involved, they kind of buy into that mentality as well, because that's the mentality of everyone. So it's hard to not also adopt that same mentality, and I think that's why it continues to have momentum and keep growing. For sure.
It's a really good bunch of people. And one thing that you do, which I would recommend to everyone else to try and do, is Jason does a roll call every week. So on Monday, he'll send out a WhatsApp message to everyone in the group and say, right, who is playing this week on Thursday and Friday? And then he will basically tag them in that roll call. And as people say they're going to join, he updates it and he resends it out. Because then what happens is everyone gets reminded about it, right? And everyone's thinking about it. And they see everyone else saying that they're going to go play, and the excitement builds and they want to go be part of it. And suddenly you're like, yeah, I want to go Thursday and Friday. I want to be there every single day. And I think that's how you've managed to grow such an awesome scene. It's just really simple tricks like that have actually had such a massive impact. And you've grown, a really respectable scene out of, as you say, just effectively you and one other, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to say that was my plan all along, but really I did that just for my own admin, because we have a good relationship with Sanctuary where we play, and I just keep that list so that when I contact them, because I usually book the tables for us and they lay out as much as they can. It's just for that reason, really. So if there's 10 players, I can say, can I have 5 tables ahead of time? But we'll go with your idea. Makes me sound like a genius. So that's why I did it. I put the pressure on people psychologically, so they have to come.
Accidentally is still a win. So obviously you just been to tournament scene and all that great stuff, and we'll come talk about that in a bit more. But you said you had a bunch of models that you had from 40k, which obviously gave you some teams to play with. But what teams are you currently playing with, and what made you pick those kill teams over any others?
So at the start, I just had the Grey Knights, and they were good, but they were quite basic, and they don't, as most competitive teams, they don't really interact with a lot of the rules as they can do. So I moved on to the starter set, which had the Vet Guard and the Commandos, and I kind of clicked with the Commandos. But as the meta in my little group grew, everybody was Space Marines, and it felt real bad when you charge someone who's a Space Marine and do not a lot of damage, and they kill you outright with every single model. So recently I've settled on playing Void Dancers. That's what I took to Warhammer FEST, and I just like them because they have lots of shenanigans, lots of ways to get around people and be annoying, and that's kind of my jam.
They are sneaky, those clowns. Okay, awesome. So let's talk about tournaments then, because you just talked about Warhammer FEST. I think it's great thing to go into. So and this is both the ones that you've organised and tournaments you've been to. So what tournaments have you been involved in? And let's talk about what tournaments you have coming up as well that you're excited about.
So I've been to a couple of Warhammer World ones. We've been to a narrative one, but we don't talk about that. And my own ones, I try not to play, but when we had the first one, when you first came, there were 16 players, but one person ended up dropping out really late, and I had no one else to fill the void, so I had to play, because I felt giving someone a buy every round was kind of feels bad. I know it's not a huge amount of money, but you still paid some money to play Kill Team. If you have to sit for 2 hours doing nothing, I thought that was bad, so I played that one as well. The last one was 32 players, it was too much admin, so I was glad I was able to sit that one out. Been to Warhammer Fest, obviously, this weekend, just gone. I probably can't make it to the next golden ticket event in Warhammer World. I'll have to wait and see if I can get the time off. But the upcoming, we've got our own tournament on the 5th of August, which I've booked up for 64 players. I don't know if we'll actually reach that number, but if we can even get 30.
We'll reach it. I
hope so. I hope so.
Cast that net far and wide.
Yeah, I'm ready to start getting on the advertisement train again now that Warhammer Fest is out of the way. So we'll pump that and see what we can do with that.
Well, for sure. And I guess one of the things I would say is that if you're looking to go to that golden ticket event in Nottingham at the end of August, well, why not come practice, in a 64-player event at Sanctuary, which is right next to Nottingham, and get your practice rounds in so you're ready for it? Because I think a lot of people are turning up to tournaments for the first time, and they can turn up to these huge tournaments, and they're trying to learn a lot of the core rules of the game. And maybe the first 3 games they're just learning, right? So come learn those games at Sanctuary. Jason is an awesome host, and the Sanctuary staff is a really great place to learn it. And get amongst it, because it'll put you in a really good place for a tournament, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's a good place to learn as well. We had a guy in that last tournament, a guy called Tom, who finished second, and he said he had never played Kill Team before. I'm not sure how much I believe, but if that is true...
That's a lie.
It's a lie. It's got to be a ringer. I secretly think he was a playtester, and he just come down to see what rules he could break. But yeah, even if that is true, I think that's a good advertisement to say that there's all different catering for all different skill levels. If you just started and you've just played practice games on your own, learning the rules, still come down, just adjust your expectations maybe. Don't think, I'm going to definitely place in the top 3. Maybe just think, I'm going to learn a lot of stuff, because I'm going to encounter loads of different teams, loads of different people. They're all going to have different approaches that I probably haven't thought about, and I can take something away from every game. And then the more you do that, hopefully eventually you'll start moving up and up and up and finishing higher and higher and higher the standings.
For sure. And Conor and I have talked about this before as well, which is, you can set your win condition to whatever it is that you want it to be. And your win condition for your first tournament can be, I just want to win 1 game. Or it could be, I just want to play 4 games in a day. or it could just be I actually want to just learn the rules of the game, whatever it is. It can be as simple as that. Of like, I want to learn how commandos play, whatever it is, and that can be a win condition. And at the end of the day, you go, I now know the rules of my team, and when I go to my club night, I can perform better. And because you're doing it so quickly, game after game, the lessons stick and the rules stick much better. So it can be whatever you want it to be. It might be that your win condition is 50%, whatever, but it doesn't always have to be top 3, which I think is a pretty good idea.
It's such a great opportunity to get out of your meta as well. Like if you're used to, like you and me, we're used to just playing each other all the time. That's how we played as kids. Now you go to tournament and the models that you spent time building and painting, you can now play somebody else. You can play Void Dancers, you can play Hand of the Archon, other teams that you've not met before.
For sure. And you'll see it at your local club as well. There'll be the teams that people play at your club, teams that don't get played. Exaction Squad's a great example. No one's playing them, but maybe if you go to a tournament, you might see them. But obviously, so Jason, you've been to quite a few competitive events, and maybe you have a tip for some of the listeners, because we try to give out something every now and then, and it can be anything. Do you have anything you might be able to give?
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit. I think I haven't really settled into being in the top brackets of any competitive play yet. But what I've learned so far for competitive, and also from the organising side of if you're in a tournament, is you have to have like a flexible approach, because something will always go wrong. And that's the same when you play the game or if you host a tournament. You can't plan for every eventuality. So be prepared to have a little bit of flexibility. Don't just put all your eggs in one basket. And I think you talked a little bit about spreading your threats, and that's something I've stolen from your podcast, because I used to just have one plan, like I'm going to do this thing in the first few turns, and then if for whatever reason that gets stopped by someone just outplaying you or finding an angle you hadn't covered, I kind of didn't have a second option. But now I kind of spread those threats. So we talked about Void Dancers a little bit, about how they're really good at taking the midfield objectives really fast. So it's really easy to, if you lose that first one that you had advanced ahead to take that midfield, just to consolidate with 3, take the other one, and just be like, okay, this round will just be a 3-point round. So I think having a bit of flexibility would be my tip. Don't just think I'm really good at this, so that's what I'm going to do. Keep looking at how everything is playing out and see how can I change from here, so I'm not just constantly doing that thing that they say is the definition of madness, right? Doing the same thing over and over again with no success. So then look at it and say, objectively, is that going to work? And then if not, what else can I do?
I think that's a absolutely fantastic point. And, on reflection, I think one of the games, so I went 5-1 at the weekend. The game that I lost, there's a few reasons why. And one of them, I think, actually was my failure to threat saturate on turn 2. So, I think that's a really good lesson. And it's something that if you can do, and you can keep doing it, it's really going to help you out going forwards. I'm going to jump forward a little bit based on time. Connor, people who listen to this and think to themselves, we listen to you every week. These are really good. How can we give you a bit of support? Is there a way that people who listen to this podcast might be able to help us out?
Yeah, for sure. So the easiest thing that you can do is just hit like and subscribe. If we can get to 1,000 subscribers, that's the point when YouTube will start to monetize us, and we're growing really quickly already. I think we're over 650 now, I think, from looking last. So thanks so much for doing that already, and please continue to do so. But if you want to give us some immediate support for as little as £3 a month, which it will go nowhere towards buying the cost of a drink at Warhammer World. Warhammer FEST. Let's be honest, but it will get you early access to all our videos, exclusive Patreon-only content, as well as access to our Patreon priority questions as well. And then finally, perhaps you saw a lot of the goodies being teased at Warhammer FEST, and if you wanted to buy any of those, if you buy them with Element Games via our affiliate link below, then we'll get supported that way as well.
Awesome stuff. So I think we'll do now is we'll just go into a quick discussion about FEST, because I think it's pretty good to talk about the tournament, and then an overview of the event and the games, and then we'll talk a little bit about Nott's Kill Team and how you can get involved with that, and maybe actually we need to touch on the reveals as well, because there's some really exciting stuff that has come out. So let's talk about FEST as an overview. So I think in the end it was 118 players, which is a pretty good turnout. I think they sold 150 tickets, so I had 30 people drop, which is a bit of a shame that we had so many drops, but pretty cool that it was such a large event. in the end, I went 5-1. Jason, how did you get on? You said you went. Was it four?
Yeah, finished 4-2.
4-2,
Nice.
which
I think I lost one to Tappy, who also
beat me, which
yeah,
and this is the tradition at this point. It's a classic thing for me. I'll get into round 4, 5, or 6, whatever, and my teammate will come and just take me out of the running. So it's
proof that turning point tactics is working though, because the students are beating the master, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it is interesting. The one thing I would say about Warhammer Fest was the level of competitive play I thought was really, really high. And I spoke to some of the Spanish guys and the Hungarian guys and all that sort of stuff, and the Polish guys as well. And they were saying, actually, it from when they came previously to like Warhammer World and played then to now, there's been a significant step up in people's playability, and they can see the scene's getting much more competitive. And I don't think anyone had an easy game. I think overall, my first game was against a really good Polish intercession player in a mirror match. Then I played a really good Spanish player with his Kazakin. And then round 3 was... Who did I play round 3? Serkan, who is a pretty well-renowned, one of the London scene top Void Dancer players. And then I went into round 4. I played number 2 in the world, Carlos. But that might change, actually, because I think Dan Barton might skyrocket on some of the points he scored at the weekend. So we're interested to see where he ends up. But yeah, and that was a really tough game. And then I went into against Watapi, my teammate, playing Pathfinders, which I managed to lose because of a few reasons. One was decision making I talked about earlier. I think I made some bad calls on turn 3. And I think I didn't have a good game plan turn 2. And then my final game was against Tucker, a Corsairs player. He had a really great tournament, and that went well for me. So I ended up doing 5-1, but it was really hard games. The interesting thing is because at the end they did a bracket. So was it turn 4? I think Jason round 4.
End of round 4 into round 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so they introduced brackets throughout the tournament, which basically meant that the top 8 players could only play against the other top 8 players. So even though Tucker had lost a game in round 5, he was still playing in the top 8. So I think he had like a really tough day too, where he was playing only top 8 players for the whole of it.
Great learning experience, though. Imagine playing.
Oh, for sure. And like to be fair to him, he's been playing in London for a little while now, and he's doing really well with his Corsairs, and he set up quite a big turn 2 strike. And we talked about his threat saturation. He didn't quite have that. But he had one option where had he got one initiative turn 2, he could have dual activated his leader and done quite a lot of damage with the leader and fusion pistol. So that was an interesting game.
So where'd you place?
So in the end. Actually, I don't know. So at one point, I was 4th, and then I think it might have gone down to 9th, but they haven't yet settled.
How can you be
out.
9th in the top 8?
That is a great question. So what they've done is they bracketed everyone into the top 8, and then for placements at the end, they then unbracketed everyone again.
Okay.
Yeah, so we thought we were playing for top 8, but unfortunately, because they took that bracket out again, that then meant that actually we were playing just for VP, and that meant that someone like so let's take Tucker for example. He got into the top 8, he got bracketed, and then I think he went from being 8th or 7th, down to I want to say like 37th. So he dropped 30 places from top 8.
Yeah, I've got it here. He finished 39th, sadly.
That is, a bit harsh. Like he's been. What's the opposite of submarining?
Yeah, I guess that is submarine, but in a way. And that was it was like a really because what they did, and the issue with it is let's say I won my 4th round, whatever, and I lost my 5th round, but in my 6th round, I should have really been playing someone who was also on 4-1, but I didn't. I ended up playing someone who was not on 4-1, obviously. That then meant that you had more people go 4-1 5-1 at the end of the event because of the artificial bracketing. So you had more people have more undefeated streaks, which then meant you had a lot of submarines coming up through the system, which then led to a very interesting final top 8. So
when we went to the big London, the Grand Tournament, they had a similar bracketing then, but then I'm sure that settled top 8 because you played amongst yourselves, and then that figured out who's top 8, and then obviously then it's 9th is the winner of the other tournament taking place. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's how it's normally done, because otherwise you run the risk of this sort of thing where, because in my scenario, or in other scenarios, but you could get it where you've done really well, but you end up not knocking out or not being able to play the best players in the other brackets. So, and not just that, but if you think about it, if you're in the top 8, the chances of you actually maxing your VP against the other top 8
they're
players,
tight games, aren't they?
Yeah, they're always tight, and so you sort of got like double penalised. Now, what I would say, that the benefit of this is it didn't affect the top 3. So you can't take anything away from that. So number 1 was undefeated over 7 rounds, right? So that's good. That there is no debate. Number 2 was undefeated after 6 rounds. There's no debate. And Bart was lucky in a sense because he was undefeated after 5 rounds, but he also had the most VP and the most TAC ops. So he was always going to come third, which is good. But what this could have done, and this is why I really don't like it, is Bart could have been playing, as far as he's concerned, for third place, but had then someone else scored more primary points and more secondaries, he could have gone from being, receiving a medal to outside of the top 8 if someone had submarined enough. But I think there was a few points in it, so it didn't happen. But yeah, it was interesting because there wasn't a plan for the initial bracket. So I think a lot of people on day 1, and we can ask Jason how he felt about it, but they found out that there was going to be a bracket injected, and they thought suddenly when they're in day 2, well, I now suddenly can't get higher than, say, top 9. And I think that's a bit of a feels bad. And then they made sure that everyone felt equally bad when they then reintroduced it at the end of day 2. So yeah, it was an interesting choice. And I think the main thing is with pairings is probably you got to stick to one throughout the tournament, not change it as the tournament goes on. Otherwise, it gets messy like this. So, Jason, how did you feel about it? You've organised a lot of tournaments, and obviously you were in that initial bracket where you got sort of taken out of the running initially.
Yeah, I got put into the second bracket, so I couldn't have finished higher than 9th through the bracketing system if it hadn't been reverted. I think as an organizer they should have communicated it better. I think that was the big issue, because obviously you guys at the top end of the competitive scene, you have different game plans and strategies where you think, well, this will maximize my scoring opportunities to get higher and higher up the ladder. And if you don't know how those scores are going to be interpreted for the win condition, you don't know if that's the right strategy. There's no way to do it. And springing it on us like midway through day 2, actually we are going to do that now, because it was like a rumor. It was nothing confirmed on day 1. I heard a few people talking about it, but no, like Elliot didn't come and say that was happening. The organizer didn't come forward and do an announcement to say this is what we're going to do. So we're just rumors. No one knows if that's going to be the case. And then midway through day 2, just sprung upon you. Well, that's a big feels bad. If you've come over from Madrid, you're a Spanish player who's been practicing, thinking this is going to be the win condition because that's typically how the UK scene works, and then actually everything you've been practicing for and invested a lot of money to come over for it's all been switched around.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, there was like a double hit because you were in the top 8, facing only top 8 players, and then your performance perhaps was not as good as it might have been if you had a more favourable matchup than you actually ended up getting, and then you had the double hit of, oh, well, at least I can't finish any lower than 8th, and suddenly they reverted the decision, and the placings are all back to being normalised. So you've had tougher matches in the last 2 where you perhaps didn't score as well as you would have, and you've been knocked further out of the final position that you thought you would be able to finish. I just think what they did actually adversely affected more people. Like the number of people that weren't adversely affected was so minute. They made sure they doubled down on the adverse effect by changing the decision and then reverted it back to make sure twice as many people were disadvantaged.
It's interesting because I just looked at the scores there, and like so my teammate, I'm pretty sure, was in fifth with Tappy at the end of the day, and then it then jumped to 11th. So from going and being in the top 5 to outside the top 10 is like it's quite a significant change, you know. And when you're not expecting that, you've left a tournament hall thinking, oh, you know what, I got X placing, and you go and tell people, and then you realise actually, no, we've changed it again, and it's gone back the other way. At least a bit of it feels bad because one of the things, and you know, Conor and I have discussed this before, is like it's really important to know what the win condition is, right? So like, what do I need to do to place well at this event? And if you don't know that, then you're not doing the right things on the day.
Coming
So
ninth on the second
initially,
day, that's how you do it.
yeah, exactly. So initially, it was score as much points as possible, right? And it turns out that you know it was that, but the way that they changed it midway through, it then wasn't for a bit. So if you did particularly well day one, but then missed out on getting top 3, you were then adversely penalised in day 2, which I felt was yeah, it wasn't great, and definitely a room for improvement in future, because you know they've proven that they've got this right with the Warhammer World tournaments, and they've done this many times before. So it's interesting that they had those sort of issues.
They didn't use bracketing at Warhammer World, did they?
No. And I think it's fine to use it if it's communicated ahead of time and you stick with it. I think it's just the constant changing between the two and not talking it through with the players is probably where I think there's room for some improvement, because it's particularly like it's a very expensive event, right? It's a premium event of the year. It was I think £70 for the ticket.
Wow.
As people have said, that they've paid for hotels to come up and visit. People have paid for flights, trains, all that sort of stuff. The financial investment is huge, and it didn't quite, I think, hit the mark of celebrating that and celebrating what KillTeam has become, because you know Elliot's made this an absolutely incredible game that everyone loves, and you've got 150 tickets sold for this thing, which I think is almost outperforming like AOS, and I think it just deserved just a little bit more fanfare, which would have been really cool, because you look at the cosplay stuff that was out there, it was awesome, and that had a big fanfare, and loads of people were excited for it. And
yeah, I was going to say, what was the vibe like? Because I got to see the cosplay, looking on Warhammer Common, that the clips and stuff that looked cool. Like I remember turning up to Warhammer World, and you knew you were at Warhammer World. Like you've walked past the Rhino, you've walked past the Space Marines, you're in Bugman's Bar, you're getting greeted. You've got like your Kill Team, what's it called, like tag and stuff, and then you get like your greeting, and it's high energy. Everything looks gleaming. What was it like at Warhammer Fest?
Well, like Jason, what was your takeaway from it? How do you feel about the atmosphere?
I thought it was quite flat, to be honest.
Really?
Like, I think you touched on a few things that I spoke to in the group that I travelled up with, in that it did feel like before leading up to it, we were talking about how it's going to be it should be the biggest Warhammer event in the country of the whole year. It was easily going to be the biggest tournament that we had in the UK probably ever. So we were all really excited, and there were a lot of like fundamental things that didn't happen that would have happened in like local tournaments. Like there was no briefing, there was no introduction, like, there was no fanfare.
Oh dear.
For something that should have been a marquee event. It didn't.
Yeah.
There was no sense of occasion. It was just a lot of like, oh, we wait around. Oh, the pairings are up. We'll just start playing.
I think it's just small things like that. So and again, this is like you realize how lucky you are. So when I go to the London scene, when I go to the Nottingham scene, when I go to the Manchester scene, when I go to Warhammer World, like the events are just so good now, right? Like and it's, I don't want to say it's simple things, but like everyone's learning from each other, right? So you turn up and there's a really enthusiastic TO that's like welcoming you in. The boards are all set up with different terrain that looks really exciting, and it's different for every map. The objective markers are already laid down. The deployments are marked out. You've got really clear round timings, all that sort of stuff. And the whole thing, just like it's all about that, and you can tell that everyone's happy to be there, excited to be there. But I think sort of hit the nail on the head. It was a bit flat. It was like, there's the boards are there, and the terrain looks nice, but it's not really laid out too well, and you have to do quite the setup yourself, and it's all kind of like just digital. Like, hey, digitally you find out where your table is, but no one's not like saying pairings are up and you go find your tables, and good luck, have fun, like or anything like that. It was a little bit, it wasn't quite as good as the other tournaments have been previously, which is a bit of a shame because I think it deserved it. I think the Kill Team community deserved it as well because it's such a great community that we have, and I think it needed that recognition potentially. One of the things I would say was really cool though is we did get to see the Kill Team reveals, and I think it's probably worth just touching on them because I think they're really interesting for what it showed and where the game's going. And I also attended the Q&A at the end, so there's a few extra bits that I think is just worth touching on because people might not necessarily know this already. So, I mean, Conor, have you seen the new Inquisitor agents?
Well, I was going to ask Jason actually. He said he started with Grey Knights. Are you excited for these Inquisitors now coming to Kill Team?
I mean, so one of the guys who we play with, Johnny, he's been banging the drum for Inquisitors for a long time. So I was really happy for him that it's finally happening. I don't think the models massively appealed to me, but I like the idea of the rules with the potential list building and everything.
Yeah.
All the options you can potentially have. I guess it's going to be a nightmare for balancing, I would imagine, depending on how they do it.
It's going to be difficult.
But it opens up a lot of potential combos. That means no two Inquisitorial teams hopefully will be the same.
I like that.
You could have like 3 or 4 in a day, and it could be a completely different approach from each one. If they take RBTs, that's a totally different approach to like 4 Scions.
You can
or
catch
5
someone
Scions,
out
or
with
whatever it has been.
your Kill Team at the start, Kill Team selection. Oh, I brought this. Oh, okay, I haven't thought of that.
Exactly, and it's going to make roster building really interesting. And I think this is going to be one of those teams that if you like the theory crafting, you like the list building part of 40k or the mechanics of that, this might appeal to you. This team, and one of the interesting things that came out from it is that ancillary support, those additional models, which can be either Scions, Sister of Silence, Veteran Guard, RBTs, Breaches, or Kazakin. So quite a few options. The Q&A, they said that you don't get the faction-specific rules for them. So you wouldn't get elite points if you were playing Kazakin. You wouldn't get orders if you're playing Vet Guard. And you wouldn't be able to shoot into combat if you're playing Exaction Squad.
What about like the finicky bespoke things? Like, okay, the comms model will say give 2 friendly Kazakin models plus 1 AP. Obviously, an Inquisitor is not a Kazakin. Is that going to synergize that?
Yeah, so they didn't confirm what was going to happen. So they wouldn't give us, everything there and then. But the way the rules are worded on those data sheets is it will only apply, I imagine, inside that ancillary team.
Okay.
So you won't be able to have a comms guy buffing your Inquisitor. Well, he's not actually an Inquisitor; he's an Interrogator, which is a bit of a shame. So. But they look really cool, right? And that's really interesting. And you have to choose. You could even double up on the agents themselves. So you get 7 models base, which is going to be, I think, like the Servitor, your Interrogator. Probably choose one of the Catachan melee guys, and then you have that Anti-Psyker or the Zealot with a shotgun. And then you get to choose if you want to add in some extra guys or not. And then you have the ancillary support options as well, which, as you said, I think it's going to be really, really interesting. The other thing they revealed, obviously, is the Chaos team. Are you more of a Chaos guy, Jason, or is that speaking to you?
Yeah, I think as a model, like just looking at the models, I know they're mostly models we've had released already for 40k, but I like the idea of them a lot better, and the rules just appealed a lot more to me with the potential evolving the cultists as you go on, because I think that's a really cool interaction, whereas typically you get into the end of turn 3 and most teams are heavily weakened. And there's a potential where this team is the opposite, whereas as you go on the turns, if you evolve, I presume they get stronger data cards as they evolve.
Yeah, they're
actually like much harder units to put down, whereas other teams have been whittled down and potentially are a lot weaker and easier to kill. You've now potentially got harder. Like, I think that's a good, like a nice shift in the way other teams play out.
It's really bold of you to assume that Conor's going to make it all the way to turning point 3, though. So
I've got no doubt he'll charge in turning point 1, and then all the cultists will be dead.
So it's a really interesting mechanic, right? It's like the idea that as you go through the game, you're going to get stronger and harder to deal with, and more deadly and potentially more durable. And we're starting to maybe see a shift in some teams where this is becoming a bit more common. So it'll be interesting to see how that interacts with like the opposite side of the game, where you have like Kazakin, for instance, who have a really big pool of elite points at the start, but actually they're going to burn them very quickly. and they're not going to have many by the end. Whereas I said, this team is probably going to be growing as it goes through. So I think you have to be really efficient in killing them to make sure they don't get to turn 3 and 4 and mess you up.
Is it an expansion to the blooded point system? You play blooded more than I do, Ryan. Is it that you build like a pool of blooded and more your models are getting stronger? Is that right? But then they're actually
exactly
mutating.
Yeah, and it's like the next level of it. So and looking at the models, to me it looks like they're going to be a very melee focused team.
Nice.
So you've got Corn is pleased. So I mean, all the guys have got like bolt pistols or auto pistols, probably more likely. To start with, and basic melee weapons, and then as soon as you get to the mutant stage, well, I think you're just on claws. Like I can't see any guns, or it's just
like
all
the
tentacles,
Thing.
isn't it? So it's like the Thing, yeah. And then finally at the torment stage, well, it's you're full on demon mode at that point. Not much left of the human. So yeah, like unless there's potentially some psychic abilities from the actual the Chaos Cult guys, then other than that, I don't think they'll have much range at all. But it's interesting to see because it looks like there'll be 15 models potentially. I don't know if there's gonna be a restriction on how many devotees, what we're gonna call, you can bring. But if you're 15 bodies, then that's going to be a lot to chew through for any team, right? So
the highest we've had?
Anti-infantry firepower. So Vet Guard is 14, right? So if it is 15, that's going to be a lot. And that could be really, really oppressive, particularly if they get stronger as the game goes on, which would be pretty scary.
You better chew through them.
you better chew through them, and you better chew through them fast. Okay, the other thing that came out of it as well was some new Space Marines. Have you had a chance to look at the new Space Marine models, Connor?
Is this the one where they come in you get a mystery box and you get like a special hero model, and then you get eventually 7 of them?
That is it. Yeah. So it's called StrikeForce Justian, which is, I think, a terrible name, but fine. So
what would you have
maybe
called
that's
it?
just me. I don't know, but Justian just sounds, I don't know, it's not great. I think it's one of their characters' name. I think the captain is called Captain Justian. So
Justian StrikeForce. It makes sense to me.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Well, it's like Schaefer's Last Chances, isn't it? But just not as good, right? Like, I don't know, Justian isn't a great. Yeah, it's just very Ultramarines.
Okay, yeah.
Where's my Helbrecht? That's what I want. So Black Templar guy at heart. But yeah, so there's 7 models that you can collect. Most of them are intercessors or assault intercessors, but they have brought in a Phobos Eliminator. They have brought in a heavy intercessor with I think it's Executor Heavy Bolter, but I assume you can take any of them that you want. And they've also brought in a captain with a Power Fist and Plasma Pistol. So really interesting that they've done this, and I'm very interested to see how they're going to balance it, because I think they suggested that you won't be able to put all 7 models on the table at once in the Q&A, because that would be very powerful, which I agree. If you have 7 Space Marine models or 3 APL, that will be very powerful. But you're going to effectively have a lot more flex than you have with the Intercessor team, and so I'm wondering, is this team going to turn out to be like Legionaries, but with the Doctrine rerolls that we all love? Because if it is, that could be really, really strong, right? So, they certainly look interesting. They look like they're going to be able to bring AP, silent weapons, grenades, volume of fire, melee threat, all that sort of good stuff. That's what you need to be successful as an elite team. So, I'm interested to see what they do with them. I'm interested to see what their special rule is going to be, because I assume it won't be chapter tactics. So yeah, is this calling to you? Because I know, Jason, you're also building some Phobos at the moment, right? So are Marines appealing to you?
That's the first Marine team I've ever painted and built myself. Because I was more of a Xenos man, Xenos scum. But yeah, I don't. The reason I haven't played Intercession is because they're quite one-dimensional. They just do what they do, and they do it very good, and that's it.
Yeah,
and that's not really how I like to play. That's why I like Void.
I'm right here, man, but it's fine. You
That's what I'm saying. Just making sure you know. It just didn't appeal to me. I like to do all the shenanigans. So hopefully they have more of that, and they're not just we roll dice with easier passes, and we're really good at taking hits.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say, so 3 of them are on 40mm bases.
Ooh.
And 5 of them are on 32s. So the 3 that are on 40mm look like they're going to be the most powerful, I would argue. So you have the Phobos Sniper, you have the Heavy Intercessor, and you have the Captain. So my gut, I might be wrong, says that you might have to choose one of those because they did say that the Sergeant is the standard guy with the bolter. Who's like reloading it. They said you get a marksman, who's a guy like aiming his bolter in. So he said like he'll be your leader, the sergeant, which makes me think you have to take him, which probably means that the captain actually isn't the leader and is maybe more of a special character that you can have. Maybe he's going to be like the cult agents. You'll have to switch 2 out to have him. But that could be really rough playing a 5-man elite team. I'm not sure if I'd want to do that.
What if they're all like Custodes though?
Well, true. And to be fair, there's a Custodes player who did really, really well because he made it into the top 8 before, I assume, being dropped somewhere. In fact, I'm going to check now. Yeah, so he was in the top 8 and then he dropped to 14th, which is still really good, right? So 14th with Compendium Talons, just 4 models.
That must be the highest placed Compendium finish.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really impressive, right? So maybe there is something there, playing with 5 models, as long as they're at the right durability and the right strength level, maybe you can make it work. So it's really interesting seeing these reveals. I'm a bit nervous about balance because I'm looking at this elite team. It's brand new. That's pretty cool, right? Everyone wants to play elites, new Space Marines. And I'm thinking, okay, but what if your Imperial Agents team brings a plasma pistol, a plasma cannon, a Kazakin plasma gunner, a melter gunner, a melter mine? They can have more APT weapons than you have models on the board. That could be difficult. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how they're going to balance those teams out. With all those abilities that are there.
We haven't even discussed Plasma Cannon and Multi-Melter. They're new toys.
Oh, they are. I mean, we haven't had a Multi-Melter before, right?
No.
So I'm guessing it's going to be an infinite range melter gun.
I would guess that,
which is pretty cool, right? But Plasma Cannon in big 40k is usually a blast weapon, right? So you would think that people would be maybe having a blast, maybe blast one, something.
Disgusting.
Yeah, that could be really gross if you leave some elites close together. I think if it was Blast 2, that's probably too much, right? So you have to choose between the heavy bolter, the plasma cannon, and the multi melter. But I can't see you taking the heavy bolter anytime soon, unless they make the stats really bad for the other 2. But I'm sure they won't. Was there anything else that was revealed at Warhammer Fest that we want to talk about?
Who won?
Oh, what the actual Warhammer Fest? Oh, yeah, we haven't. I just realised that's a really, really good point. We haven't talked about Dan's.
Yes, come on, Dan.
How do I want to describe this? Nuclear rise to the top and defeating the Spanish Armada with Navy, which I think is the most
so thematic.
It's all there, man. It's got all the tellings of a great story. But yeah, so Navy breaches coming in first. Dan Barton's, that's his second golden ticket win. Yeah. So he won up in King of the North, winning the golden ticket up there, and he's won at Warhammer Fest, winning the paid golden ticket.
He did
there.
very well at Warhammer World as well, didn't he? Did he get second?
I think he came second or third at Warhammer World. Yeah, so he's consistently placing really well and doing great. And I think he's only 17, so he's done a really good job. And I know that all of his games were very tough. He played some really good opponents, and he did 7 rounds. I think the final round ended at 8 p.m. or something, 9 p.m. Which is that's real late. So yeah,
was that 5 matches in a day as well?
Incredible run. So it was 3 matches day 1, 3 matches day 2,
but 4 for Dan.
He played the 4th in the day. Obviously, if you're not expecting it, then that can be quite rough. But no, fantastic job to Dan. And then second place was Wallace, and I didn't get to play against him, unfortunately, but by all accounts, he's done a fantastic run with Orc Commandos. I know that a lot of people are very enthusiastic about how successful he was. And what I would say is I think the maps favoured those teams. So the lack of doors really favoured breaches and their ability to use their hatch cutter to get around the map. And obviously,
Commando's got a similar model.
Commandos have breacher boys do the same, and they also have the ability to forward deploy. Right, so the terrain layout, I think they've already received a lot of feedback about it, and we don't need to talk about it too much. I think it could have been better, but those guys were able to really capitalize and do really, really well based on it. And then in third place was Bart, and I've played Bart many a time, and he's a great player, and he took his Void Dancers to a solid third place. So top three, really, really good players, and it's great to see that two of them are from the London competitive scene. Bart can argue that he's from the Polish scene as well, I guess, but we'll claim him as our own.
He counts as us.
He counts as us because he got a place, right? If he did terribly, then no, he's not from London. I'm joking. He's been in the London scene longer than me. So two guys from the London scene doing really well, and one of the Spanish guys, but from Cantabria, I think, rather than the Madrid guys. I think I'm not 100% sure, but awesome performance by them. Really, really well done. Okay. The other thing that was released is obviously the roadmap and the teaser, right? So they had the teaser video, which shows, if you look in high res, it's pretty much a jungle with some background stuff, right? Which is pretty cool. And then also you've got the roadmap for the next season. So we have this Ashes of Faith narrative expansion, which is really good that it's coming out with just models, because I don't need any more Into the Dark Terrain. GW, listen to me. No more Into the Dark Terrain, for the love of God, please. And obviously the new season's coming out in autumn, which is awesome. And they did confirm in the Q&A that it will be a new way to play Kill Team, which means new terrain, I think. So that's really awesome that they've sort of given that to the guys that were there. So, I mean, Jason, what's your thoughts? Are you excited about this? The prospect of more Eldari, a little bit of Xenos coming out, is that speaking to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I was equally fed up with Into the Dark Terrain, especially as for all the tournaments I run, I've had to build like 3 or 4 more sets to try and make sure I had enough boards. So I just became a one-man production line of Into the Dark, and I am so fed up with it. So
to be fair, what you've done, it looks great, but I'm not envious of you having to have done it at all.
No, it's horrible. It was horrible. I had to rope my poor missus into it as well, and to be like, "Oh, help me with this while I'm at work every now and then to like reduce the workload." It was awful. So as long as we get a season where it's not Into the Dark, and hopefully not 4 boxes where it's just the same terrain again every time, I'll be happy with whatever comes.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully, if it is like a Deathworld Forest, surely they can give us different terrain for Deathworld Forest. Because you're right, if it's another 4 sets of forest, like there's only so much forest I need, right? Like, so hopefully we get some real good variety.
Well, even generally, if you look at the terrain, it's all like the Imperial, like destroyed, desolate building stuff. It would be nice actually to get some different areas, some grassy woods or whatever, or jungle or something.
Particularly, with all the Xenos teams, I think they really appreciate that. Like, there's got to be a Tyranid team on the way. Like,
it's in the pipeline.
It must be coming, right? Like,
it sounds like the start of season 2.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, everyone thought it was going to happen. Maybe you're right, but if that team does come, then it will thematically fit in so well. So would Gene Steelers on a Gallo Dark, I guess. But fine. We'll see. Tyranid players can suck it for another season without their faction. And finally, the other thing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was expecting to see Gene Steelers on the Space Hulk. Sorry, I mean Gallo Dark. But obviously we didn't get it. But I will take it if we get clear plastic lictors versus clear plastic XV-25 space like stealth suits.
Oh, yeah. Because they banned people reproducing them, didn't they? Because people used to be able to make them, 3D print them, whatever. And GW said no.
I swear, back in the day, I remember a clear plastic Frodo He was an invisible model for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, perfect.
So I'm sure they've got the technology somewhere, and you could still prime it and paint the models if you wanted a painted guy. But I want a transitioning Lictor or a transitioning stealth suit fighting each other. That'd be cool.
They have the technology. They
They have the
build it.
technology.
Yeah. So the other thing is the KillTeam Annual. So in the Q&A, they confirmed that it's going to have all of the Gallowdark season teams in one place. So if you're looking to be able to play Kazakin, Hierotech Circle, Votan, Beastmen, all that sort of stuff, and you don't have the rulebook, they said that that will all be in the KillTeam Annual, which is pretty cool. So I know a lot of people missed out on Shadow Vaults. So that'll be a place for you to be able to get those rules and condense those rules into a little smaller packet as well. What they didn't confirm is if it will have the season 1 teams. So we don't know if it's going to have, your commandos and your vet guard and all that sort of stuff. My gut says probably no, because that probably should have been in the last annual. So it might just be that you get them, but we'll see. It'd be really cool if it put all of the teams in there, because that would just streamline how much stuff you need to take to a tournament. And what would be really, really cool is if they put all the balanced data state updates and all the erratas and changes that they've made to all of the data sheets in there as well. But that is some very, very wishful thinking for myself.
I'll let them off on this one, because I bet when they make these, they produce millions of books, and then the idea
sure,
right.
Yeah.
But then if that's run out, then please let's get the, because it's so frustrating having to flip between. But it has to be done, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, well, I remember I lent one of the guys from the London scene, Pete, my Morok rulebook, because he was playing Phobos, and he wanted to be able to take that, because they tell you have to bring the physical rules. And I was like, I'm giving this to you, but there's been so many changes for that team in both the errata and the balanced data slate that it's like there's no point referencing the original book, right? Like, there's nothing in there that's true anymore. So yeah, they're really interesting. Okay, so I think that's pretty much covered off everything from Fest, unless there's anything else you want to double back on, Conor, or anything like
that. No, but let's use this as a chance. Jason, can you remind us when and where we can attend your tournament?
Yeah, so the next one we have is Saturday, August the 5th. It's based at Sanctury Gaming Centre, which is in Southern Nashfield. We mostly post everything on our Facebook group, which you can search for, which is KillTeam-Notts area, I believe. I will double check that. Giving you duff info probably.
We'll put it down in the link in the description as well. We'll make sure it gets in there.
Yeah, so it's KillTeam Notts area. That at the moment is the only online presence we really have, because it was mostly started as a local group, and it's kind of grown a little bit beyond that, and I probably need to look to see how to take that forward. But yeah, if you go on the Facebook, everything will be on there. There'll be a link for the event. I'm hoping to build it up to around 64 players. I should be able to support that much with all the terrain and stuff. And it'd be good to keep seeing new people, because it's been really nice growing the network. We've got the lads that come down from Manchester. I spoke to a couple of the Spanish lads when we were at the tournament at Warhammer FEST. Tried to integrate a little bit with the London lads, but timing didn't really work, because I wanted to speak to their TOs and see if we could try and do a bit of cross-scene networking. But yeah, I didn't get time to do it, sadly.
Well, I actually have quite a few questions about the Notts Kill Team group and that sort of stuff, because I personally, I've been to quite a few competitive scenes now, and I think the last tournament you ran was the best tournament that I have been to. I think that's true. I think it was the best tournament I've been to, because what you've done is you've looked across all of the other tournaments, you've taken all the best bits from what they do, and you employed it yourself. So it was so smoothly run. The terrain was great. All the boards were laid out ahead of time. They had the objective markers there. It was a mix of both into the dark and open terrain. So people, whoever wanted to do what, always had it. So it was a really, really good tournament. And I would say to anyone, if you're on the fence about it, thinking, is it worth going all that distance for it? Like, it absolutely is worth going that distance for it. And if we can get 64 players, it'll be incredible. But well, the question I have, what do you think makes the Notts KillTeam group so special? Because you've gone from 2 players to, I think it's like 30 in the group or so now, with regularly sort of 15 on a night. And you've gone from, a tournament scene where the first, well, you didn't have a tournament, and then you went to 16 players, and now up to 32. So Any idea what makes it so special?
I think it's mostly the social side of it that we've all bought into the idea that we play the game as kind of like a secondary part of our night. The main part is I get to catch up with some people that are pretty cool, that are nice people, that we have a good laugh, and we just also happen to have this shared interest that we like to spend a bit of time on. I think that's what's made it grow. That like I said before, as people who are new to the game say, "Oh, I'll come down for a game," they kind of buy into the mentality because that is everybody's mentality. So it's really hard not to also just follow what everybody else is doing and be like, "Oh, they're really sociable. I'll start being really sociable too." And I think that's why it's grown, and that's why I really enjoy it. They're just good people. I think that's the best thing, really. Everyone seems to be pretty cool. I can't think of anybody falling out with anybody, or there's never a time where I'm like, oh, I don't really fancy playing that person. Even you, who constantly give me a drubbing. Like, we always have a good time. We always have a laugh. There have been loads of times where the game is fully gone, and I'll do something ridiculous, and you'll be like, oh, you could have done that. I'm like, yeah, no, but I just it's gone now, and we're just having a laugh, just seeing if I can kill your Space Marine with a grot, see what happens.
I do love the variety of players that we have in the group, because like, so for instance, you obviously you're taking quite a competitive route. You're trying to get better, and there's a lot of very good players there. Miguel was amazing, but like, we talked to one of the guys who was going to Warhammer FEST, and this is what made me laugh. It was just, he was like, I asked him why he was playing Slaanesh. And he was just like, well, I wanted to play pink. And I just think it was just such a brilliant moment where I was like, that is incredible. And to be fair to the guy, if you saw his Slaanesh models, you'd 100% understand why you wanted to play them, because they look incredible. He didn't win best painted, did he? I don't know.
No, he got invited. I mean, we could just spend all the time moaning about things that went wrong on the administrative side. But yeah, he got invited up to the judges' table, and then they just didn't give him any feedback. They only announced that a best painted or a best overall, whatever the award ended up being.
And there wasn't a second or third place, was there?
There wasn't a second or third, despite it being advertised on the event pack that there will be a second and third. And fair enough, he didn't get an award, but even just to say, like, in third place was this person, have a round of applause, I think that would have been enough for those guys, because they do work super hard on the hobby to make it like really good.
It's so hard to explain how good these models look as well, unless you can like see them, right? And like, particularly in person, like, pictures don't do it justice. You really have to see these models.
I mean, if you don't mind, I can give you a shout out to his Instagram if people want to have a look.
Yeah, and we'll get that in the description as well.
It's Siddy Painter, so it's SIDDY and Painter, all one word, on Instagram, and he does amazing work. He's really good.
So if you listen to this, go on there, look at his models, give him a like and a follow, because they are beautiful models, really, really beautiful. So one of the really good things about the group isn't just the people, but the venue. So what is it about Sanctuary that you think is it, or makes it good for KillTeam, or makes it good for these events?
So the venue itself is amazing. Like, it's got a lot of space. They've obviously invested a good amount of time and resources into turning it into a good gaming area. It's not like some places are a shop with a tacked on small area for gaming. I think this is primarily a gaming area with a tacked on shop. It's the other way around. So it's very convenient. There's always lots of space. You're not like cramped in the corner. There are massive benches. They put the tables down. When I lay out the boards, there's always enough space on the left and the right, so you can put your books, put your tokens, put your models out, and have space for a drink or something else. You're not cramped in the corner. The staff, the owners in particular, I think they were gamers. I guess they don't get as much time to be involved in gaming now, but it's obvious that they were gamers, and they built a venue that they thought they would want to play in. So that obviously relates to when we go and play in it. Like, it ticks a lot of the boxes, and they give us a lot of support. They're really friendly. They're good people. Up to now, there hasn't been a single thing that I've said, oh, can we have this for the group, that they've said no to. They've invested in like more terrain, a couple of boarding action boxes for us to use for Into the Dark, a couple of Octaria sets that we can use for our open board stuff. And I'm sure as the group grows, they'll keep investing more into us.
And this is going to sound really basic, but for quite a lot of the elder gamers, potentially, the ones that are struggling with some back issues, the tables are at a really nice height, right? So you're not having to bend over too far in that, because one of the most common things that I see people complaining about when they go to a tournament is how much their back hurts at the end of it. But like the tables are a good height. There's loads
Impact
of
sport.
space. It really is, right? It really is. But you can just chill out, and it's a big venue as well. So if we had 64 players, like you would still have room for 64 players, which is really nice, without you all being bum to bum and not being able to move, which is good, because you need that to be able to spread out and enjoy the day going forward. So that's, I think, really cool, and it's a great venue. They have a great coffee shop. They have donuts, if anyone knows what they are. The great treat selection. Cheap drinks, all that sort of stuff. It's not like going to Warhammer Fest and paying £6 for a drink. It's a usual pound sort of price. So yeah, cool. I mean, there's going to be some people that are probably in a local club, and maybe they have like one or two players, and they think to themselves, Jason, you managed to grow this massive group. Is there any tips that you have that you might want to share about to people about how to do that and how to build this community?
Yes, I think I spoke earlier about being persistent, and obviously there is a balance between being persistent and being harassing. You can't.
And you haven't found it yet, right?
No, I haven't found it yet. Yeah, I cross the line regularly. No, but if you harass people, obviously you're going to push them away. But if you're persistent and you just constantly put your message out, eventually people will start to come, and then that word of mouth will spread the group further. And that's what I did, really. Like I said, I looked at what groups are there on Facebook or what Discords are there that like subscribe to KillTeam related stuff, and I tried to put my message out there like, I'm looking to start a group in this area. Anyone is local or localish, get in touch. And then it grew to like a handful of people, and then every week there was like a new one or two, and we just kept growing and growing and growing. Something I did sort out once it was about 10-15 people, I started to look at doing an open day where I just had a day at Sanctuary. I booked out some space, didn't cost me anything. Nobody had to pay any gaming fees or anything that day, and you could just come down and try the game. So if there were people that were kind of on the fence, I used that as an avenue to be like, come and meet us, let's play a game, roll some dice. I'll explain some basic concept, and hopefully you like it enough to come back on Thursday, Friday, and start taking part in the group. And I think that's what people should do. Just keep putting your message out there. Even if you just get one other person and you two regularly play, people will see you playing, and if you have a good time, they will be interested, because that has happened to us at Sanctuary. Like, I'll come in on a Thursday and the staff will be like, oh, there's a guy that came in last week and he's left his number. Can you reach out to him and see if he can get involved for next week? Because he said he was really interested. And he just sees us having fun and like the banter and stuff, and says, what are they doing and how do I get involved in that? So that's probably the best way to do. Just find a small group or build a small group, play regularly if you can, and hopefully that just being present and always being available will bring more people in, as well as spreading your message around.
And because it's one of those things where the game is generally really a good game. So as soon as you get that 40k player come across and just dip their toe in, they'll be like, you know what, actually, all the people here are really like chilled out, good dudes. They're having fun, and the game itself is fun to play. Like, what's not to love? And they probably already have all the models they need to be able to play competitively as well. So I think that's a great point. And as you said, you've hosted tournaments as well, and people will be at the store. They'll come in, they'll see how many people are playing the game, and they see what the excitement is about it, and they go, "Oh, I want to get amongst that as well," which is really, really awesome. So, I mean, potentially there might be someone listening who is local to sort of Mansfield or to Nottingham area, and they think they might want to get involved. How best can they get involved in that group, but also the tournaments we talked about previously?
Yeah, so I've got my Facebook group, which I said is at KillTeam-Notts area. That's kind of our only online presence at the moment. I am on your Discord. I don't know what my tag is on there, but I mean, they could always drop me a message on the Turning Point Tactics Discord. I'm happily give my details out there. Mostly I do all the organising through WhatsApp, just because it is primarily local players and it's easier to say who's available Thursday or Friday. But I also do a shout out on the Facebook group every week and say, if you're not in the WhatsApp and you want to come down, let me know, just so I make sure there are enough tables. The tournament is on the 5th of August. Again, just drop me a message on Facebook or Discord. I can give you the details, or join the group and just harass somebody. They will point you in the right direction.
Awesome stuff. And I think that's probably the best way of doing it. So you have Facebook, you have Discord. If anyone else needs a steer towards it, feel free to message me on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. I'll pass your contact details across. You can then get added to the WhatsApp group where you get those weekly updates, that roll call from Jason to try and get you excited about the game. and you get all the tournament information as well. So feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to Jason. We'll get you paired up and get you in and amongst it, because it'd be really awesome to see if we can get 64 players down to Sanctuary and have a really good tournament, because that is a great practice opportunity for anyone that's wanting to go to the big London tournaments, or the big Warhammer World tournaments, and they want to see what a really good tournament scene is like. Maybe they didn't have the best time at Fest, that's fine. Jason can show you what a good tournament is. I promise you, it is really, really fun. So let's try and get amongst it.
And I always give out free chocolate.
And there is always free chocolate, which This is true. Both times I've been, there has been free chocolate. Okay, Conor, is there anything else that you want to talk about, Conor?
No, nothing for me.
I think, Jason, that's been epic, man. Like, really appreciate you coming on, giving us a bit of your experiences on Fest and telling us about the Nottingham scene, which is really, really great. Anything else that you want to say before we sign off?
No, I think that's it. I mean, thanks for having me, and hopefully anyone that was listening and wants to join in with us in the tournament, or even just come down if they're free on a Thursday or Friday, happen to be in that neck of the woods. I'm really keen to try and intermingle our group with other groups, because like Conor has mentioned, you have your local meta where everybody plays whatever way they play. And I would love to see, like, we've already got the lads from Manchester that come down last time, and we go up to there quite frequently now. And hopefully we can do that with London and any other big scenes, so that as a country, the Spanish won't always be coming over and stealing our trophies. We'll be more broadly used to all the different variety of tactics, rather than just learning the tactics of the people you play with every week.
I think that's a great way of doing it. So, for instance, for the London scene, there's plenty of ways you can get a train to local stations and be able to get up and get amongst it. And if you go as a group, you can share rides, I'm sure, as well. And there's parking at the venue, parking nearby. There's train links, all that sort of stuff. So it's perfectly feasible to do. Because you're right, we need to build a united front. The Polish are turning up, the Germans are turning up, the Spanish are turning up. They're coming to all our big tournaments, and you got to be ready for them. There's some good players.
Dan Barton's Navy,
but we've got Dan Barton, the Saint, and he's out there fending them off, at the front line. We can't leave him on his own, right? We've got to make sure that we're up there supporting him the whole way through. So let's get amongst it. Let's get together and share ideas, share tactics, and get better as a competitive scene, so we can really show what the Brits can do. I think that'd be really awesome. So let's get down to Sanctuary and get those practice rounds in.
If I could just add something to that as well, I think another thing is the social side of it is really it's undersold in a lot of places, because it's been really nice for me, having recently got into the competitive scene, and I went to Warhammer World for the second time recently, and I'd already met Mark previously after Mark Amos bullied me in the first tournament at Warhammer World, and then I met him again, and he had brought me some wound counters, because I just flippantly mentioned it when we played, that those are really handy. And then he specifically went and made some on his 3D printer on the off chance that I might be attending, because I hadn't confirmed I was attending or anything. And I think those kind of social interactions, they're really undersold, but they're really nice. And the more we meet other people from other areas, the more that you'll go to Warhammer World or Warhammer Fest, and you'll know 20, 30, 40 people, and you'll constantly be having little chats about, oh man, what happened since last time I saw you, and how has this been going? And I think that's a real, there's a reason why we don't just stay at home and play online games, because you get the same competitive buzz out of those that you do here. And we actually go and we want to meet people face to face. It's for those social interactions, right?
It really is. And it's it's hard to describe just how cool it is when you, because as soon as you start going to these other scenes, like say if you're from Manchester and you go to London and you go to Notts, and then suddenly you all turn up to Warhammer World, it's like you turn up and there's 50 of your mates there. And it's just that it's hard to describe how cool that is, and you all have a common passion about the game, which is so cool.
That is bringing, talking about Mark, a psychological element to the game I've never even thought of. Turn 0, handing out wound markers and going, here, you'll need these.
It was after he'd already damaged me. He'd already caused the damage, brutally murdering all my Pathfinders, and then being the nicest person in the building about it as well.
Yeah. And that is the problem with him. He's
too nice.
Such a nice guy, and he beats you so easily. It's man. But yeah, it's man, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. This is what it's all about. And hopefully, as we go through, I'm going to try and reach out to people like Bart, to people like Dan, to get them on as well, because I want people in the community to learn more about the community, right? I think you're a real focal point of that, and you're a real ambassador of what KillTeam's about. So it's been awesome to have you on. I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode, and hopefully to people listening, they found something new or useful. And if you did, as I said, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and that's when YouTube can start giving us a little bit of a payback to help make this podcast better as well. If you don't want to wait and you want early access to all of our episodes and you want a little bit more interaction with us with some Patreon priority questions and get your questions answered live on the show, you can do that by joining our Patreon for, as Conor said, as little as £3 a month, and you'll get exclusive access to all of that content. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. So drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Ryan. This has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.